By the end of the war, more than one-half of all the industrial production in the world would take place in the United States. Mobile was among the fastest growing of all American war towns. Even before the war began, powerful Democratic Congressman Frank Boykin landed his city a $26 million defense contract that transformed the municipal airport into Brookley Field, a major Army Air Force supply depot and bomber modification center that provided 17,000 civilian jobs. In 1940, Gulf Shipbuilding had had 240 employees. By 1943, it had 11,600. In the same period, Alabama Dry Dock went from 1,000 workers to almost 30,000. They included Hank Williams, the future country music star, and the parents of future home run hitter Hank Aaron.
It was 7 days a week. And during the war, when it was so strong, it was 12-hour days, 5 days a week, 10 hours on Saturday, 8 hours on Sunday. You felt like you had a week off. There was such an influx of people that you got on each other's nerves. And there wasn't enough watering holes to entertain everybody. So they'd get out and have fights and drink and all that kind of stuff.
African Americans streamed into Mobile from all over the South in search of defense work and a fresh start. They found both. But they also found the same kind of discrimination they had known at home.
Mobile was a pretty fair-minded city. And before this time, whites and blacks got along pretty good as long as you had the status quo. But when blacks began to get homes, to buy homes and to ride in big cars, it turned some people off. The policeman would stop you and give you a ticket. My cousin got a ticket for driving 16 miles an hour in a 15-mile zone.
150,000 people, 10 full military divisions, the civilian equivalent of Rommel's entire African army, bivouacked without warning in the narrow confines of one peaceful southern city. Less than 3 years ago, you might have walked blocks in Mobile without encountering a person. Today, you stop to scratch your head and a line forms behind you. No wonder there's such a chaos and congestion of traffic.
Mobile became so crowded in 6 months that people were living in vacant lots. They put up tents in vacant lots. People went into the boarding houses, and one room would hold as many as 4 men.
Every available room was canvassed, utilized.
They would sleep for so many hours, get up and leave the bed, go to work, and another man would take the bed.
This was a neighborhood grocery store. These girls, welders, checkers, and machinists.
Emma Bell Petcher was from the tiny town of Milry, Alabama. Most of her girlfriends had taken secretarial jobs once they'd gotten out of high school. But Emma Bell, like her father, loved to take things apart.
I always fixed my own appliances at home growing up. The washing machine got a nail in the pump. I took the pump apart and took the nail out of the housing of the pump. And, you know, I didn't have the patience to call in a repairman who would be maybe 3 days later, and he wouldn't tell you morning or evening. So I'd empty the washing machine, turn it upside down, take the screwdrivers, and because I knew how to do all this stuff. So I packed my little cardboard suitcase and got on the bus and went to Mobile. So they put me in a school to learn airplane accessories. That was starters, generators, alternators, and some other thing. So we did those parts, just those little instruments, over and over and over and over until graduation. We had to almost put them together blindfold.
Petcher breezed through all her tests and got a job working on airplanes. By 1943, 6 million women had entered the workforce, and nearly half of them were working in defense plants. Life magazine paid tribute to the mythical Rosie the Riveter as neither drudge nor slave, but the heroine of a new order. In Mobile, 2,500 women worked at Alabama Dry Dock, 1,200 at Gulf Shipbuilding, and 750 at Brooklyn Field, where Emma Bell Petcher worked her way up to inspector, responsible for quality control.
You would be assigned X number of planes to be responsible for. I was to inspect the torque and the screws in the wings and go into the gas tanks and crawl up in the wings with flashlights. Well, I was so conscientious, I just didn't make the mistakes.
I worked at the government nursery school, which was downtown in Christchurch Rectory. And we had the children of the women that worked in the shipyards. Rosie the Riveter would come bring her child in all of her headgear and her togs that she did her riveting in, and drop her precious little baby off and go down and work all day and come back at 5 o'clock and pick the child up.
So many children flooded into Mobile that its overrun schools were pronounced the worst in the nation by the U.S. Office of Education. Some native citizens of Mobile were openly scornful of the newcomers. A school teacher called them the lowest type of poor whites, these workers flocking in from the backwoods. They prefer to live in shacks and go barefoot. They let their kids run wild on the streets. I only hope we can get rid of them after the war.
No one did it verbally or to you, but the air of the old aristocratic Mobile people were really, you know, had to put up with a lot.
Well, in Mobile, the people that came here to work in the shipyards came from the small towns. So we considered them rednecks. And they really weren't. They were very fine Americans, but they were more of our farming type of Southerner. But they adjusted quickly.
But, you know, everybody was thrown into it together, whether they liked it or not. We were all together.
And the story of Mobile is the story of every American war town.
Dearest Mom and family, I am feeling fine, and I hope to hear the same from all of you, always. I am at Camp Patrick Henry, Virginia. I would have called you up, but there are no public telephones at the camp. I feel bad because I didn't call Mom up. I thought for sure that I would go to New York or Massachusetts. I would have done anything in the world to be home that weekend. From here, I don't know where we are going and when we are going, but I am almost positive it is overseas. There's nothing to worry about, because I will not see action for a long time, and the war will be over soon. Love, Babe.
To the War Department, Washington, D.C. Can you furnish me with the exact status of my two sons, Walter Weinsheimer and Conrad Ludwig Weinsheimer, who were American citizens but resided in the Philippines at the outbreak of the war? Stop. Are they military or civilian prisoners? Dead or alive? Or missing? Stop. Such information is urgently needed. Ludwig Weinsheimer, Thornton Farms, Thornton, California.
Ludwig Weinsheimer was a well-to-do farmer in the Sacramento Valley. Just before Pearl Harbor, his daughter-in-law had written to him from Manila, asking if his sons and their families, including his granddaughter Sasha, shouldn't come home to California. War seemed very close. The old man told them all to stay where they were. The rumors of war were exaggerated, he said. Now, filled with guilt, he was frantic to find out what had happened to his two sons and their families. He wrote to everyone he could think of: old friends, the Red Cross, the War Department, the State Department. In October, the State Department told him the family had been reported to be in the Santo Tomas internment camp in Manila, but it could provide no further information.
On February 15th, 1943, a few days after my 10th birthday, we moved into the Santo Tomas camp. We left Nila, our ama, crying loudly. After bowing to the sentry on duty, we went through the gate, where Daddy was waiting for us. Sasha Weinsheimer.
For almost 14 months after Manila fell to the Japanese, Sasha Weinsheimer, her mother, her sister Doris, and her younger brother Buddy had managed to stay out of the camp the Japanese had established for foreign civilians on the campus of Santo Tomas University on the city's outskirts. But after Sasha reported having seen Japanese soldiers drowning a small Filipino boy, her mother decided they would be safer in the prison than outside it. Their father had been imprisoned there for more than a year, so long that his young son no longer recognized him. There were now some 4,000 prisoners at Santo Tomas, American and British, Dutch and Norwegian, Polish and French.
Immediately, the Japanese didn't want to have anything to do with us. They weren't going to feed us. They weren't going to follow the Geneva Convention rules. So you were left to fend for yourself.
The Philippine Red Cross provided rice. Filipino friends of the internees passed canned foods and fresh vegetables through the fence.